Right now, I'm noticing that a lot of brokers and team leaders are not doing a whole lot of training or talking with their agents. It seems like they're still waiting for guidance. They're kind of waiting for guidance in terms of how we can charge, whether there's any guidance on what we can charge, when we can charge. And so it really has kind of thrown things up in the air. That's like one camp. And then the other camp are the agents, brokers, teams that have been getting buyer agency agreements signed the whole time and have been communicating with their clients about how it works, having a commission conversation, but the commission conversation typically was not so much about the possibility of the buyer paying for their agent, more or less, hey, my fee is typically paid by the seller, and if it isn't paid by the seller, then you'll be expected to pay this at settlement.
Hello and welcome to Keeping It Real, the podcast where we talk to the most interesting people in real estate. And we got a good one today. So we have been digesting all the NAR information. And one of the common recurring things that, we think people are talking about out there is, how do I have these buyer agency agreements? And so whenever we have sales related, conversation related questions, we call the guy that we know has the answers to this, Dale Archdekin. So Dale, maybe give a little intro and then we'll just dive right into it.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm Dale Archdekin. I'm the founder of Smart Sales Coaching. The short elevator pitch is I was a hardcore listing, FSBO expired, door knocking guy, ended up co-building the number 2 team at the time in Philadelphia. And now I've been running a coaching and training company teaching agents and ISAs advanced level lead conversion strategies for the last 8 years. And that's what we do.
Okay, so we decided to kick this off because you started dropping bombs on us immediately. And I started off with a question that was like, okay, how are these conversations going? Are people afraid of them? And maybe you can just plug in what you were saying, but basically like there's 2 camps already.
Yeah, there are kind of 2 camps that we're seeing out there in the people that we're talking to. And just to preface this, my trainers, as well as a lot of our clients, have already been getting buyer agency agreements signed. It's just part of their business practices. And when they get those buyer agency agreements signed, whether it's in the very first meeting or whether it's, after a door or 2, either way, that conversation consists of what the agent's going to do for the buyer, why the buyer should choose that agent to work with, what the expectations are, what they will be, how the agent gets compensated and how that compensation works. So there's already a camp that's been having these conversations and they're like, what's the big deal, right? Now it's just a matter of the only thing I don't know going into this is how much is the seller going to be offering or how much is the listing agent going to be offering me? I have to package that in with my offer. The other camp are the people who are the deer in headlights. They're like, oh my God, right? They're the go and show agents, which no fault to you guys. It's just the way that the industry has morphed with the proliferation of online lead gen, right? It's, we shine we flash the snacky houses out there to attract the fish. The fish bites, the fish wants to go see the damn house. And so you've been running out showing the house and not having a professional conversation with people. So, that's the camp that's really afraid and scared about it.
Well, and I was going to say that's probably where we want to focus most of this conversation on. But there's probably just an easy thing we can check off right now of the people that are already having this conversation. How has the conversation changed?
Yeah. So among them, it really hasn't changed much. In fact, we just interviewed a guy that we work with a lot, and he does $40 million a year in buyer business alone. And, his process already is when I have a buyer that wants to go see a property, we schedule a meeting either in the office or at a neutral third-party location near them before we go see the house, and we have a professional conversation about what we do. When it gets down to talking about the commission, it's really shifting simply from, hey, this is what we charge. Here's everything that we do. This is what you can expect. We're going to make a commitment to you if you commit to us, and here's what we charge for that. Typically, previously, it would be typically our fee is paid by the seller. If the seller does not pay our fee, any or all of it, you will be expected that you will pay this fee at the closing table, but that's not often the case, right? So that's the old way of talking to them. The new way of talking, until we get any more clarity or further guidance, really is going to be, here's what I provide, here's what we charge. We will package, along with our offer, a request for the seller to pay all of, or as much as possible, of this fee. Any remaining will be collected from you at settlement. That's pretty simple, right? Straightforward.
Right. So then everyone's on the same page. You know what to expect. You say you're going to try and capture it from the other side, but you'll be on the hook if not.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So
do you have any sense of like, I mean, it kind of sounds like this is a little bit of like, tempest in a teacup. People are afraid of having this conversation, but it turns out that buyers are like,
Well, yeah, it's so far everybody's been reporting back to us, our clients and everything, is that it's really not that much of a deal. So when the news cycle was going on, when this first dropped, there were a few, basically getting a few reports of sellers saying, oh, well, I don't want to pay for the buyer's agent anymore, or buyers saying, I heard I'm going to have to pay your fee, right? How much is your fee? That sort of thing. But when this news cycle's not going on, people forget about that. For most people, they aren't focused on the real estate industry every single day like we are.
Yeah. Well, a follow-up question that I've had in a lot of those situations when, I talk to people that are informed and see a broad spectrum of the industry is, have you actually seen a situation where a seller is saying zero commission to the buyer, or like, we're not covering that? And I mean, maybe you have seen that, but I haven't heard of anyone that's saying that yet.
I've only heard of one or two, anecdotal cases of that. I use my wife as an example frequently. So she was representing an attorney. We do love some attorneys out there, but sometimes attorneys like to, meddle
negotiate
in things. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that. But this attorney that she was working with specifically was watching the news and was like, oh, I'm not paying for a buyer's agent, right? They said I don't have to pay for a buyer's agent anymore. I'm not paying for a buyer's agent. And after a very simple conversation about what happens if you don't offer to compensate the buyer's agent, how that's a detriment to you as the seller, he relented and was willing to go forward with it, right?
Okay. Can you walk us through what that conversation was like?
Sure. Yeah. I don't have it verbatim, but it consisted of, hey, one, if you are asking the buyers to pay more, you're essentially asking the buyers to pay more for your house. If you are not willing to help them get representation to come and buy your house, and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by doing that. And there are lots of other sellers who are competing with you right now who are offering to pay a commission to a buyer's agent if they bring their buyers to them. And so all the way around, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage by doing that.
So it sounds like, if you've already been doing this, not that big of a pivot, a little bit different presentation in terms of like, hey, you're on the hook, if not. But what about for the people that are brand new to this? Like they haven't been doing these type of agreements and they're trying to digest this for the first time. What have you been hearing from them?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's just a lot of fear and confusion, but that happens anytime that you haven't done something. And right. As soon as we can relate it to going and taking a listing agreement, you don't start advertising somebody's house for sale until you meet with them. You have a business conversation, you review a contract, and you talk about compensation, and they sign for you to do that and give you permission to do it. So when you put it into the context of representing a seller, you're working with a buyer in the same capacity. And the funny thing, Chris, is that a lot of agents don't realize that most states already have a buyer-broker relationship agreement. And in most states, it says something about how the buyer agent will be compensated and how they can be compensated. It's just that a lot of agents never use them, or they only got them signed when the offer was already drafted and they were submitting an offer. So really, it's dusting those off, reading it so that you understand it, and then practicing with some people. Practice with some listing agents. Just do it as a buyer agent, right? It's pretty much the same thing.
Right. So it's like really not that big of a change. Like you've probably already been practicing this. I like this. I like the pro tip of just practice it with the listing agents, but do it as a buyer. That's a good tip. This is why we come to you, Dale.
Thank you. In fact, go to the listing agent in your office or on your team and say, hey, if I was a buyer and you were going to approach me and you were going to pitch me like I was a seller, how would you do it? Right. And have them do that. Or, shameless plug for my YouTube channel. Go to @SmartSalesCoaching on YouTube, and we have videos of us interviewing strong buyer agents and how they present their buyer presentation and how they get those contracts signed.
Okay. So we know that like before you open a door, you're going to need to have one of these agreements signed. That still leaves a little bit of a window for like when you should introduce this contract and have this conversation. Right. And I've heard some people say like, oh, well, as soon as the lead comes into my Real Geeks, I click the button that's like fire the DocuSign or the SkySlope, and I'm like, ooh, that seems a bit early. And then there's the other camp that's like, well, at the door, and I'm like, that seems a bit late. So have you heard, like, is there like the right time? Like when is the right way to do this?
It depends on your business practices, because for those who only have buyer rep conversations, either in office or at a third party location before showing houses, that is a business practice. That's a way of doing it. And in my own opinion, it's one of the best ways of doing it. So Chris, you call me up, or you come through Zillow, you come through wherever. I don't know if I can say the Z word here. You come through the lead source that shall not be named here. And all they want to do is go see a property, right? Because that's how they've been preconditioned. Right. They're like, hey, do you want to go see a house? You want to go see a house? You want to see this house? And they say, sure, take me to see that house. The problem is when they get on the phone with you, you can't be like, whoa, hold the presses here. You can't go see a house until X, Y, and Z happens. So that's going to be a little difficult. And so if you are partaking of that type of lead, you're just going to have to say, hey, great, happy to show you that house and the other ones that are nearby on this day at this time. Here's where we're going to meet together so that we can get together, talk about a couple of elements that I have to talk about as a licensed agent, and then we can go see the house. Looks like on Google Maps, there's a Starbucks here at the corner of this and this. I'll meet you there at this time.
Yeah. For those types of lead sources, and I think we can say the Z word, have people been using different contracts? Like, hey, this is, like come and go as you please, type situation, or?
I don't know of any yet. And I know that the Z word attempted to create one, which, is still up in the air. And they're trying to, as of this recording, they're basically beta testing it with some people. And so I have to check in with some of our clients who are beta testing it and find out what the result of that is. But the basic premise is, hey, here's our signed agreement that says we're going to go and look at houses together. And I know as of this recording, some states have said this is not an adequate or valid agreement because it's missing some elements. That's what I know as of now.
So you can be practicing the conversation now, but just know that the actual document itself and what's contained in it is probably an evolving situation.
It absolutely is evolving right now. And so I think that's why a lot of teams and a lot of brokerages aren't giving a whole lot of guidance to their agents, simply because in a lot of cases, they don't know either, right? They don't know how these documents are going to work. But, so we're still business as usual. But what I would say is two things that you have to be working on right now. One is your value as a buyer agent, being able to articulate that. So something that we train within my company, we call it the elevator pitch, right? So you've got your buyer presentation, your seller presentation. We teach people how to make customized closes, which is like, hey, Chris, it sounds like you want X, Y, and Z. Here's what we do and how we provide you X, Y, and Z. Let's get together or let's move forward, right? That's a customized close. And then we do this thing called the elevator pitch, which essentially is, if you were to ask me, Chris, Dale, why should I buy a house with you? I would just be able to tell you sort of off the cuff in a clear way why you should work with me, why you should believe me, and what results you're going to get out of making that choice. That's called an elevator pitch. And we have like a formula that we use, and it goes, I, we, or my team with our knowledge, experience, or process give you result. And that's like one of our training frameworks that we use for our clients.
Yeah, I'm smiling because you almost like beat me to my follow-up question. This is like the new thing that I'm asking everyone, because I have, for a long time detected this, like well, sell them on your value, like tell them your value, provide value. You're like, well, can you break down for me what exactly that means?
We do. We train people to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a lot of agents say that, and they don't like, they're like, yeah, I'm going to provide some value. You're like 3 utils of value. Like,
all right, let me quantify for you how we train around this, right? So I just talked about that formula that we use, and it's really just kind of a cheat sheet for a new student to learn how to articulate their value in a quick elevator pitch. And what we say is we have this list of results, and these are just common things that we know, right? Like buyers want to a great deal. They want to save money. They want a guarantee of success. They want to avoid fear, avoid issues, right? They want a likelihood of success. And so those are the things generically that buyers want. And so when we say, we or my team with our process, knowledge or experience give you result, those are the things we're talking about. So what that might sound like, Chris, is, Chris, hey, love to hear about you and your wife looking to make that next move. Here's why our clients love working with us. We've been selling real estate for the last 25 years. We're the number 4 in the state, number 1 in this city. And what that means for you is that over time, we've been able to develop a process that virtually guarantees our buyers are going to find the perfect home for themselves, get it at a great deal without losing out to all those other buyers that are currently shopping in the market right now.
All right. Everyone watching this needs to do the following: get a pen and paper, push pause, set the speed on YouTube to half, then go back a minute and write down everything Dale just said.
Yeah, right. But if you listen to what I did, right? I said, here's the results that buyers want. And I said, great deal, perfect house, and without losing out, right? So avoiding loss or whatever issues. And I hung it on the framework. Me or my team with our knowledge, process, or result, or whatever, knowledge, experience, or process, give you result. That's what I gave you. That's why it sounded great.
Now, from there, I mean, it sounds like someone should be like, yep, you hit my buttons, right? That I'm worried about. What are common objections that might come up after that, or things that people might say?
Yeah. So one, we teach this thing called the question game. And so some common objections might be, I don't want to pay an agent out of pocket. So-and-so, or I can, not everybody charges their buyers, or what I think will happen in the future, somebody's going to be doing this. So-and-so represents buyers for free or whatever, right? Or so-and-so represents buyers for X. On the listing side, I'm not sure that I want to get committed to one agent or stuck with one agent, but that's an objection that's been around for a long time, which is I don't want to get tied to one agent, right? Or I want to work with whatever agent brings me the right house. That's a pretty common objection that already existed. So people should be able to handle that at this point. And then on the listing side would be, I don't want to pay for a buyer's agent. I'm only willing to pay X toward a buyer's agent. For a buyer, those are probably the only new ones that we're going to be getting, really.
Whenever I ask all these questions, surrounding NAR, you're a lot closer to this. Your wife's in the industry. You do the sales training. I'm the marketing guy at a technology company that serves real estate agents, and so I'm like, I've got to have a blind spot around this. So what do you have a sense of any of the things that are happening that were unanticipated, secondary effects of NAR or these conversations that agents need to be ready for as they start coming up?
Okay, so I don't want to scare anybody. This is nothing I've heard of, nothing that I've seen yet. However, until this shakes out and until we have more guidance around how this initial agreement thing works and who's going to police it or not, and whether or not a buyer can be represented by a licensed professional without compensation is a question, right? Which I don't know and might be addressed on a state level. The only thing that I could foresee coming from this that we don't already see now would be the thing that I alluded to, which is, that company A is offering free buyer rep if you purchase one of their listings, or, they're charging a flat buyer fee to work with us. But by saying all of that, it's actually no different than anything has ever been, right?
Right.
Since the inception of real estate, a person can sell their house without a real estate agent, and theoretically, and pay no commissions. A person can buy a house with no real estate representation, and not pay commissions. So it's not like that didn't exist before. It has always existed. There are flat fee listings, right? There are, the world of the Zword and the other websites that generate lots of buyer interest, have always connected buyers to some degree directly to the listing agent, right? So you would think that when that started to proliferate, if we were going to be getting rid of buyer's agents, it would have happened then, and it hasn't.
Right. This is like going back up to the macro level of like, wait, hang on, our real estate agent's going to go away? And it's like, man, we just keep talking about this and it doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened. And in fact, I was talking about one of our partners that we just interviewed who's from Washington State. And he said, listen, Washington State has had a zero commission listing option in the MLS for the last 3 years, and it almost doesn't get used.
The average real estate agent earns only $87,000 after 16 whole years in the industry. If you are a few years into your real estate career and that does not sound like success to you, we should talk. Real Geeks has the tools ambitious agents need to build an empire. We can't do the hard work for you, but we can multiply your grind. Give us a call today and let's talk about your future.
I can certainly come up with lots of doomsday scenarios in my own mind, but here's the thing that I do know for myself, and this is pretty much all of us that have been in real estate more than, let's say, 4 years, 5 years, is that we've seen it up, we've seen it down. It is a grind. It's probably one of the hardest businesses to be in when times are not good, right? When times are good, man, it is champagne and caviar, right? When times are not good, it is lean and mean, and you've got to have intention to be here. And so I've been through a couple of these now, been through the '08 universal collapse, been through the coronavirus. You can't go to work or do or say anything to anybody or sell any houses. And so, we just keep on going, and this too shall pass, and we'll figure it out. And there's already people doing it, and they've been doing it, and it's not that.
I almost feel like it is passing. Like the vibe that I've been picking up in the industry is like, okay, that happened, and we're going to adjust, but now we're going to like shift our attention to, hey, home prices are declining. Like that's an interesting conversation we need to have. So yeah, I mean, but I want to maybe just before we pivot into a different topic, which I'm curious to get your thoughts on. You said you've been here like boom and bust, like business has been around for a while. Your wife's a real estate agent. Is there any distinguishing features of the agents that survive that you think are there outside of taking your training courses?
Yeah, the ones who train with us stick around. No, it's the ones, those of us who do what we have to do when we have to do it, and the degree to which you maintain some consistency around making contacts, building your database, building your sphere, and having more conversations. I know it's trite, but that's really what saves them. Cut expenses, be lean, and do the activities that you need to do. Whether it's an up market or a down market, the number of contacts that you have with potential buyers or sellers over time is what determines your success or failure.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Right. It's like creating that number of at-bats. So I guess I heard two components there. It's like one, even as the market shifts, like your day-to-day, what you're doing is basically the same. Now, what could change is the amount that you plow into marketing or into parts of your business that are possibly optional.
Right. So I'll give you an example, right? In '08, when everything hit the wall and real estate tanked, there was probably 20 listings for every one buyer who could get financing and had the balls to pull the trigger on buying something, right? Depending on the market that you were in. So some dumb people like me just kept trying to be listing agents traditionally and just grinded harder, right? Had more conversations, got more no's, had more tough conversations with sellers who had to bring money to the table in order to sell their house and sell it for 30 or 40% less than they thought they were going to. And some smart people said, hey, with all these houses going into foreclosure, maybe we'll pivot and start doing REOs, right? So they pivoted, they did really well in REOs, and then that business collapsed. So, you've got two choices. You can either take a look at this and say, I'm not going to be a buyer agent anymore. I'm going to be a listing agent. I'm going to save myself from the difficulty on the buyer side. I'm going to go take listings. Or you can become more professional at handling or representing buyers, right? And that's what most people that we're in contact with, that we train and clients and talk to and collaborate with, that's what they're doing. They're just getting stronger on the buyer side. So my point is that we go through these cycles and you just keep doing more of what you're already doing, or you mix in something a little bit different, or you pivot altogether into something that makes sense or that is going on currently. But those are really kind of the choices that you have.
So when you see the people that are like getting stronger on the buyer side, is there a component there of, because we already talked about like how to articulate like how much value you're bringing to the table, right?
Yeah.
But is there also a component of like sort of the marketing differentiation? Like I am really good, serving this type of client. Like if you're in this situation, if you're the tech relocation guy, I'm there, or I'm the, I do this type of neighborhood. Have you seen that kind of, narrowing?
No, okay. I haven't. No, I haven't. I mean, I think that it's kind of a universal marketing tenet that the more dialed in and specific you can be about the market that you serve, the better messaging that you can have. I mean, you're a marketing guy, right? That's a basic marketing tenet.
Right.
No, actually, it's hard to answer this question. Let's put it this way. When fewer buyers are going to buy or have the capability to buy, when fewer sellers are going to sell or have the capability to sell or the desire to sell, then you need to talk to more buyers and more sellers to find those who are capable and willing and ready. Like that is just a universal fact. Now, when you talk about marketing, and I'm no marketing pro, but if your marketing is currently dialed in, you may actually have to add some other silos, or you may have to add some other avatars if you're super dialed in. But please don't take marketing advice from me. I am the sales conversation guy. I will tell you how to engage these people, how to overcome their objections, how to have a great conversation with as many people as possible. But when it comes to marketing, you should probably talk to somebody else.
Well, but I think that what you just said is still probably good advice. And so maybe the way I'd reframe that is it kind of depends on, here's a marketing word for you, like total addressable market, right? Like the number of buyers that are out there, right? And if that number is shrinking, then the scope of people that you serve, that you deliver value to, should be broadening, right? So you can have more of those conversations and feed your funnel. Now, if the market's expanding and, going gangbusters, it's champagne and caviar time, like maybe it's time to pick a niche.
Yeah, exactly. I think that makes sense. And I would agree with that because for me, if that total addressable market is getting smaller, I'm going to try to talk to as many people as I possibly can.
I think we did pretty good on this topic, but there was something else, like I'd been seeing information from title reps talking about like number of price reductions, a little bit of national news, that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to get your like one sense of what's going on out there in the market, but then also maybe feed into, having these conversations. Like it's got to be a little bit of an interesting time where it's like the given where interest rates have been for so long, and like what do we expect to happen in the market? And like how do you have that conversation with your seller that like, hey, market's tough, we're going to have to like readjust.
Yeah, it really, really depends on where you are. So I'll give you an example of where I am right now. So I'm in the Philadelphia suburbs where it's a monkey knife fight in these suburbs where if you're in a good school district, it literally it's a backyard brawl over who's going to get that house, right? And the values are insane in the city.
So nothing's changed from like 4 years ago.
Nothing has changed. It's gotten worse. The values are even higher. And it's like we are having conversations with people who say that they're going to sell their house before it ever gets to the market. And you start having conversations with the list of buyers that trying to get them in to take a look at it before it even hits the market. It's that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the city, 30 minutes away, downtown, not like that. Properties are sitting on the market. The values are softening. The time on market's lengthening, right? We're saying that it's lengthening from a day to like, maybe a month or month and a half. So it all depends on where you're at. And right. Because we have clients across the US and Canada, so it's hard to say what exactly is going on. But I would say that across the board, more and more markets are shifting a little bit. It's not 2 years ago, a year ago, right? It was almost unilateral in every market that the inventory was too low, prices were crazy high, and there were 1 million buyers for every house. But now, from seeing all of our clients and talking to our clients, there's some more differentiation in the market across the board.
Right. Yeah. I think the genesis of the question was, we had a couple of weeks ago been talking to Teresa Bastian, who's, actually, if you go down below and you click the links and click around, you'll find that episode, or actually it'll probably be linked in the description now that I'm talking about it. But she was saying that basically the Austin market, where I'm at, is like returning to earth. Right. And it's like we were in this astronomical, like the monkey knife fight you were talking about. But now it's like things have calmed down, and I've heard sellers been like, oh my God, it's going to take a month to sell my house. I'm like, so like a normal market,
a month. That's still a seller's market.
Right.
I was a listing agent when it would take like 3 to 4 months to sell your house.
Yeah. So I guess that's just good perspective. Maybe that's the answer right there. Like, hey, it's still a seller's market. It's still a great time.
It's definitely still a seller's market. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think you were asking, what was it? How are you having those conversations?
Yeah.
And, there is a lot. It does become more difficult when you face perception that isn't matched up with reality. So you usually have to, if you run into somebody who has a very hard perspective, right? They're very committed to it. You get them to tell you all about their perspective, where they got the information and how they know that stuff. And you try to sort of run them out, right? Like you want to get it all out of them so that they reach the end of their knowledge. And then you start telling them what you know and what evidence you have. So you don't want to do that with a really hard perspective.
So to play this out, this is like, hey, I heard that it's still, like I still should get top dollar for my house. And, that's why. And so you start asking them, well, where'd you hear that? And they're like, well, like the BuzzFeed's post on Instagram. And you find out that it's like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, great. So what are the houses that you've seen recently sell in your neighborhood and how much did they sell for? Well, this my neighbor got X, Y, and Z. Oh, got it. Did you actually see that was what it settled for, or did you see it advertised for sale at that? Oh, right. Well, I heard from my friend, the other friend, that's what they said it sold for. Oh, got it. Okay, so you're not exactly sure what it ended up selling for. Do you know of any other neighbors that have gotten outrageous numbers for their homes in the last 3 to 6 months? So I'm doing a lot of questioning. When you run into somebody who's really hard on what they think they know, you've got to get them to tell you everything that they think they know first and how they know it, because at some point they will naturally reach the end of what they know. And to then they will be not necessarily open to additional information, but even they will question, where am I at now? Right? What's missing? It opens up a gap. You can't address somebody who thinks they know. You can't teach somebody what they think they already know. I think that's like a Stoic proverb or something.
Probably sounds like that. We'll just go with it.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to run them out first. Now, if you are dealing with somebody who has a light perspective, let's say, oh, hey, yeah, we want to put our home on the market. We heard it's a really great time and that people are getting really crazy numbers for their properties right now. And I'd say, oh, got it. Yeah, well, it certainly was that way at this time. Here's what can I show you what's going on now, right? Ask for permission and then give them what the current state of information is. We went from a negative 1 day on the market to now we're creeping up to somewhere between a week to 2 weeks on the market, which means that ultimately values, sellers are still a little bit too high on their prices and prices are cooling a little bit. Right, which is making them sit on the market a little bit longer. So you just have that conversation and educate them.
This is something you can deploy at the Thanksgiving family conversation.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
It's funny how human communication really works the same way. Whether it's your obnoxious uncle at Thanksgiving or whether it's the overinflated seller.
So, I mean, the way that you described that painted a pretty clear picture in my mind. It's like you shine a light on their perceptions and you find out what's informing that opinion. And when you've exhausted, like, this is why I think this is the way it is, then you can start to have a conversation that reshapes their opinion because they'll have like reached bedrock.
Yeah, if you think about it like this, get them to the end of their sidewalk and they will ask what's next.
I like that. That's good. Cool. Dale, I think that you've answered my questions for the moment. It's always good having you. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah. So you can find us at smartsalescoaching.com. I'm Dale at Smart Sales Coaching. And if you want we have tons of training resources on our YouTube channel. So just look for Smart Sales Coaching.
And it'll all be linked down below, guys. So go find Dale. Like, I always feel like I feel, or every time I talk to you, I pick up another like verbal kung fu, trick. And so, yeah, now I'm going to be doing this whole perception thing, and my family's going to get really tired of it.
I love it. No, what's going to happen is that all those annoying people are going to love talking to you because you're such a good conversationalist. Now
there
that you
we
let
go.
them,
That's the right way to frame it.
that's what's going to happen,
everyone.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everyone. This has been awesome. Definitely, if you like this, go down and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. If you've got questions for Dale or us, leave a comment. We read all of those. And we may not respond to you on YouTube because, let's face it, YouTube comments sometimes can be a bit questionable, but we definitely try and find you and reach out. So you can always hit us on our social medias and all that stuff. So if you've got questions, let us know. We'll respond. All right. Talk to you later.